Well, hello, friend. This is TJ here, otherwise known as Six Missing, and I'm out here in nature recording some videos for you to talk about each track on the record Here For Now, which is out on Network. I hope you can stick around and enjoy it, and I hope that you're well, and I can't wait for you to hear this record. Thanks for listening. Hello, welcome. I'm TJ, otherwise known as Six Missing, and we're talking about my record Here For Now, which is a 12-track LP out on Network. In this series, I just want to do a little behind the track, a little story, little production tidbits, a little info that you might not know if you just listen to the record. So here we are, track one, Breeze. Track one, Breeze was written when I was working on a film and was writing music for it, and started working on the music before I had a chance to speak with the director, which, pro tip, don't do, because you will most likely waste your time, which this thankfully didn't turn out to be, because I was able to repurpose that exploration session into what became Breeze, which was this kind of airy, breezy, patient intro track that I felt set up the stage for what this record was to become. And I really love how it came out. It's a blend of kind of everything that I, as Six Missing, have established is, organic and electronic, woodwinds, and a little bit of modular and synthesizer and post-production processing and field recordings. And it's the perfect track to just set the stage for what the record is, which is going to be this kind of peaceful, meditative, deep experience. And so that's track one. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of these little clips. So we're here in Austin, and it's the summer, so we're going to keep this pretty brief and pretty quick. But today we're talking about Waves, which is the second track on the album, and sort of set the whole stage for what the record was going to become sonically and also just emotionally. And it started with an improvised performance on the modular system that I just felt was breathing, and it was patient, and it was ebbing and flowing. And really that's where the title came from. Waves is just feeling the ups and the downs of the performance. And then after listening to it, editing down a portion of it from the long form piece to become the track on this album, I felt like there was just something that I needed as well to add just a little sprinkle of something to, and that was adding in the acoustic, which came later. And during a moment of playback, listening to where the performance was at just as the synth alone, and I felt like I needed something to anchor us as the listener. So just some kind of stars in the sky, if you will. So the acoustic guitar came at a later time and was just felt as I went. Welcome back. So today we are talking about Cleanse. I'm not very vague sometimes in the naming of my tracks, so for this one I was most certainly on a few day long juice cleanse and was feeling the effects of that. So I named it Cleanse. This track is the embodiment of the musical compost that I was talking about, in that I took a modular performance from a year and a half prior and fed it through some time stretching plugins, offloaded that to cassette tape, played that back at a lower speed, captured it back into the computer, and then washed it out completely. So the pad itself is the result of a performance that took place in the past, coming to get a second life here in the now. And then I'm not really a keys player, but the Moog Memory Moog makes me feel like one, with how beautiful and delicate and emotional the machine is. It just feels like it's crying in this track. And that's what I really loved about it, is that it felt so mournful. And you can really hear those moments of breath and hesitation because the piece was improvised in one long take. There are no overdubs on it. What you hear is what I played in that amount of time, in real time. And so I'm really pleased with how this one came out, because I think it also signals a change in my direction, an exercise in restraint, really. So I can often overdo things, and I think that the best studio tool, the best tool in life, is editing, and sometimes muting the unnecessary stuff. So Cleanse came about pretty quickly, probably all in all 4 to 5 hours start to finish, not including the year and a half that the tracks that make up the pad sat and aged. But I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you can feel those moments of breath and hesitation and seeking and searching in the playing. And I hope you're enjoying the record. Thank you so much for being here with me. See you next time. Welcome. Today we're talking about Sleep. Sleep is maybe one of my favorite tracks on the record. Can't be positive about that, but I love it. And I think the reason is because it is everything that this record represents. It is a modular performance that in the past I would have just called done and shipped it, and it would have been out there. And in fact, that's really what was set up to happen, is it was ready to go and I pulled it down. And then I used that performance as the basis of the new track that I wrote. And to me, when I started listening to it, all I could hear was the melody, the chords, the sleepiness, the dreaminess of it, the delicate nature of the piano and the synth plucking along, kind of lulling you to sleep. I added in additional elements that I just wanted to fade into the background and not be the stars of the show, which were the Prophet with the little descending melody line, and the Memory Moog for just little patches of pads. Other than that, it's the modular rack in one long performance edited down, and then the piano lulling you to sleep. And that's Sleep. Thank you so much for listening. I am in the shade now, so hopefully I have a little bit more time out here. See you next time. Hello, welcome back. We are talking about track 5, named Float. And there's not too much to talk about production-wise on this, because this track was pretty much an all-in-one pass. It was a long-form modular performance that I did live, and ended up loving just the vibe of it all. And with modular performances, it's very hard to recreate certain moments. So I'm happy that I was recording. So that's pretty much it with the production end of it. But the title means a lot to me, Float, because back in 2017, I began flotation therapy in New York with one of the very early co-founders of the float community in New York City. And the fun thing about this is that his float tank was located inside his co-op in Manhattan on 23rd Street, which as someone who was brand new to the floating community, it was a bit jarring to show up to someone's apartment and derobe and have a experience. But I was into it and looking forward to it, and I did it, and of course it was very safe. And I had my first float experience, and I did that for the next several years and have continued my flotation therapy practice to this day. And I just feel like it's this really hard to describe experience that when you really just drop away and your ego checks out, you are in touch with something that you cannot really explain through words. And I even had an experience where I said to him afterwards that even talking about this right now feels like I'm cheapening the experience. And he totally understood. And I think other people that have had maybe those moments in meditation or floats or even periods of exercise or just peaceful mindfulness you can understand that. And I think that that's the thing that I kind of try to achieve in my music, is getting to that state of no mind, that state of just egoless existence, just being and just existing. And I hope that as a listener going through the record, you might be able to feel some of that, and you can get a little taste of it. And I hope that you enjoy it. And so that's track 5, Float. Stay tuned for the next. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. Hope you're well. Welcome back. So today we are once again outside in Austin in the summer, which is just really merely a logistical oversight on my end because it's very hot. And I am realizing now that my thoughts don't come to me as clearly as they probably could if I were cooler. But here we are. So today we're talking about the track Always. Always is just another prime example of the workflow that I set up for this record, which was only learned by going through it and doing it, which is really that it started as an improvised piece on my modular synth, a long form piece, something around 7 or 8 minutes. And then listening back to it and identifying moments that felt right to start fleshing out the arrangement. And that happened at a later date, about 1.5 years later, actually, from the performance to the time that the arrangement started taking shape. And then from there, it was returning to the acoustic guitar, the element that just felt most me to add to it, to blend that human and machine, technical and organic, electronic and organic material to it. And it was a completely unfussy setup. I just wanted to capture the emotion of it and in that moment, the idea of it. So I really just kind of half stood in front of the microphone that was mounted on my desk that I used for videos and meetings, and just stood until it felt right and moved myself around a stationary microphone instead of moving the microphone around me. And then just performed and captured it and did one of the more fun technical tips that I have, which is to duplicate the line and flip it down an octave and pan it out opposite from the main part. Creates this really wide stereo spread and feels like a huge piano in some cases. And then layered in the Moog, the memory Moog and the Prophet to create these lines that bounce around in your head and just have a soft plucks, which is just sort of what the voice of the record was really becoming. So that's it. I hope you enjoy Always. I hope you're enjoying the record. Thank you for being here with me, and I'm glad that you're probably inside in air conditioning while I'm filming this in June, and it's very hot. So thanks for being here, friend. Welcome back. We are talking about track 7, Possibility. Possibility is basically me in a nutshell. It's me embodied in a track. It's a dark, gloomy, rainy soundscape. That happens to be my favorite weather. I just think there's more interesting elements that a dark, gloomy day has. Something can be hiding behind something and you need to go seek it and find it, and it draws you in, versus the bright sunshine where you can see everything. It just doesn't feel as interesting to me. So this track is yet another exercise in restraint, in pulling back and ignoring my instinct to overdo. I think as a producer, I often want to show you what I can do on every track, every time. And I think that learning to keep things held off makes for a more interesting experience from a listener's point of view. So I got to use the Korg PS3100 on this to create these interesting syncopated rhythms, and then using just piano melody to kind of push it forward and give you this feeling that oscillates between major and minor, that I just feel really represents how my mood is most days these days, kind of just going between the highs and the lows. And I hope you enjoy it. I hope it makes you feel something. and I hope it makes you see why I called it possibility. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening to these. Thanks for listening to the cicadas here in June in Austin, and I'll see you next time. Okay, Grow. We're talking about Grow today. Grow started its life as a piece of a soundtrack that I was writing for a documentary film about illegal sprinkles. It's a real thing. You can Google it. So the plucky kind of nature of it was, of course, the visual of sprinkles that I was getting when I was writing the piece for the film. Ultimately, it did land in the film in its state, and I thought that it could see a little bit more life by adding something to it. And that something was the acoustic guitar and the piano and a little bit of a melody. And again, in a just completely unfussied, uncomplicated way, I stood up and angled myself around my desk-mounted microphone and played the acoustic guitar. Did it in a few takes because I did want things to be a little bit more cleaner than maybe performances in the past. But I did use one of my favorite tricks again, which was to play it twice, pan those two pieces out, then duplicate those pieces, flip their panning, and drop them down an octave in the software, and then tuck that drop-down octave underneath. It gives this illusion, to me at least, of this ultra-sized acoustic guitar. Just something a little like otherworldly about it that you could never really just find off the rack. And I love doing stuff like that. It's just a trick I've been doing for a while. It's not even so much a trick as it is I wanted to see what happened one day, and I really liked it. So yeah, from illegal sprinkles to this piece that ended up on the record, there wasn't much of a journey for it to go through other than it just needed a couple more layers to the cake. And that is certainly another baking joke. So thank you so much for being here. I hope you're enjoying the record, and please share it with whomever you think might enjoy it. And I'll see you next time. Okay, welcome back. So today we are talking about track 9, Guidance. And that title is obviously me talking to myself in that I am constantly looking for guidance. Guidance from myself, guidance from the universe, guidance from my music. So the name just felt right. And again, there's not much to this track. And that's kind of a overarching theme for some of them, is that they were just done. And when I was finished performing them, finished writing them, capturing them, that was it. And I used to like to call my music ice sculptures because it was fun watching it come to be. And then afterwards, they would just melt away. So you had to be there for it. And I was there with my music while I was performing it, watching the ice sculpture take shape, enjoying it, and documenting it in the process. And that's really what I feel like the writing process was for some of this, which was just to document the experiment, the existence, the presence that I had when I was writing. And also, fun fact, I must not have tuned the oscillators correctly because I went back to try to perform some other instruments on top of it and couldn't because it was slightly out of tune. So there you go. Good lesson. Always tune or don't, and always be recording. So thanks for checking this out. See you on the next time. I'm going to do it really quick because it is hot and we are in the woods here in Austin in June and it's summer, which was my bright idea to come up with doing this outside. But here we are. So I figured at this point, we've been recording for a little while and I'm not creating very clear thoughts. So I'm just going to read what I wrote about dreams. I settled on the name of this track because this is a straight-up dreamscape. All around you spins the material of your dream world, the hazy matter, the intangible feelings of knowing and unknowing all at once. The Memory Mo's name, Memory, informed the design patch I was playing. I wanted something haunting yet safe and comforting. Something hopeful yet mournful. The progression itself is also walking the line between being an uplifting feel and one that makes you want to fall to your knees and sob. Duality. At this point in the record, we are now layers deep into your experience, and you are finding that you can catch yourself zoning in and out of consciousness, which was exactly as I was when I was performing this solo synthesizer piece in one improvised take. The backing track is a time-stretched piece of the same performance, tearing apart the fabric of time, but which came first, the ambience of that performance. So exactly that. I'm glad that I wrote that in air conditioning, because it is that. I performed this piece on the synth and then captured the synth onto cassette tape and fed the performance back into Ableton, in which I used Paul Stretch to pull it apart and create this ambience. But the ambience comes first in the whole thing and sets it up, so it's just organic to itself. Dreams felt like that to me, a dream. And I hope you're enjoying it. I hope you're enjoying the record. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Hello, my friend. Today we're talking about track 11, Moving. Moving has been a topic of conversation for me in my life for the past 3 years. And I felt like, in hindsight, even me watching this video a few months from now when everything is out, I might be in a different place. You might be in a different place. Moving has always been a part of the conversation for me, and I've been hopeful to be able to put it down. And I think sometimes when you take things out of your head and put it down onto the proverbial page, it helps you do that. So that's what I was trying to do with this. To the keen ear, you'll notice that Moving is actually track 1, Breeze. It's manipulated, it's slowed down, it's pulled apart like saltwater taffy. And I really feel like that creates the right image for me. Saltwater taffy can pull apart. Certain things stick and stay, certain things break away and fall apart. And some pieces are sweet, some pieces are hard. And I feel like that really represents the journey that this album went on to get to this point, to be listened to by you. The material was manipulated a year and a half in the making, really. And so I took Breeze and fed it to cassette tape, and from cassette, slowed it way down, fed it back into my modular rig and washed it out with some beautiful reverb, and then just let it live and breathe. And I didn't overthink it. That was all that happened with that track. And I think it's a good lesson for us as creative people, or just people existing, is that sometimes you don't have to overthink it, and you've already done the hard work. Just use it. So that's Moving. Thank you so much for listening, for watching these. And it's going to be pretty crazy to experience this a few months from now, when I can't even remember how hot this actually is, when I'm inside, hopefully in a sweatshirt. And I hope you're all well. Thanks for listening. It means the world to me. Hello and welcome. We've made it to the final track. And by this point, I really hope that you've come to spend some time with the record and that it's helped you find some peace and helped you relax a little bit. And if you are a meditation practicer, if that's a word, I hope it has deepened your practice in a way that maybe it hadn't before. So regardless, thank you so much for spending your valuable time with my work. And it means the world to me that you listen and share it with friends and family and listen to it again. And hopefully you'll find new things each time you listen that you hadn't heard on the first time, that have been there kind of all along for you to discover. And so we're here at the final track entitled Fireside. And the basis of this track is a field recording that I took on my phone while taking a short little getaway from Austin with my wife to a campground. And this city boy was able to make a little fire, and I didn't have anything to record with me, So like they say, the best camera you have is the one that you have with you. The best recorder that you have is the one that you have with you as well. So I just started using my phone to grab the recordings until the phone kind of almost shut down because it was too hot. But it was worth it. And you can hear the little crackles and the little insects of the night coming alive. And that really, I don't do that often in the recording process, but I actually wrote to that piece while listening to it. It really helped inform the space that I left in the music, the gaps that I left there. And as far as technical side of things go, I was using the Soma Cosmos pedal, which is a asynchronous looper. And I fed some piano into it, some guitar into it, and then let that kind of jumble it all up and process it as it would. And then what I really wanted to do to wrap this record up is everything that is so characteristically Six Missing in my mind, which is a little bit of strings, a little bit of guitar, a little bit of voice, a little bit of nature, a little bit of texture, and together it creates what I feel like is my true voice. And again, I was doing guitar, and this is kind of the first time on the record, being the last track that you hear, an electric guitar. And I'm playing super quietly with my fingers and just allowing the space to breathe. And so that's it. Thank you so much for joining. I hope you've enjoyed this record. I hope you can share it. I really appreciate you all listening to it, and I hope you're well. Until next time.